How do I access JavaScript object properties with variable names? Imagine you're trying to grab specific details from a big list of information, but the name of what you want isn't fixed. Instead, it changes based on what the user clicks or what data you get. That's where understanding how to access object properties with variable names becomes super helpful. In JavaScript, objects are like containers holding data in key-value pairs. To get data out, you usually use dot notation. For example, if you have an object called user with a property first name, you write user first name. But what if the property name isn't known ahead of time? Maybe it's stored in a variable. Dot notation won't work in this case because JavaScript expects the property name to be written directly. That's when bracket notation comes into play. You write object variable, where variable holds the name of the property you want. For example, if you have a variable called property name that contains the string first name, you can access user property name. This way, you can change the value of property name to last name or email and get different properties without rewriting your code. Let's look at a simple example. Say you have an object called user with properties like first name, last name, and email. You store the property name you want in a variable called property to access. When you write user property to access, JavaScript looks at what's inside property to access and uses that as the key to get the value. If property to access is first name, you get Alice. If it's email, you get alice@example.com. This approach is especially useful when you're working with functions. For example, you can create a function that takes an object and a property name as arguments. Inside the function, you use bracket notation to retrieve the value. This makes your code flexible and reusable. You can also combine expressions with bracket notation. For instance, if you want to access a property with a name built from parts, you can do string concatenation. Say you have a settings object with properties like dark mode, font size, and language. You can write a function that takes a prefix and returns the full property name, then access it like settings get setting key, dark, which gives you dark mode. Remember, you can't use dot notation with variables because JavaScript treats userProp as a literal property named prop. It doesn't look at the variable's value. Bracket notation is the only way to access properties dynamically based on variable names. Numeric property names work just as smoothly with brackets. If you have an object with keys like 1, 2, and 3, you can access them with scores or scores1. JavaScript converts numeric keys to strings internally, so both work the same way. When working with dynamic property names, always check if the property exists before trying to access it. You can use the in operator or check if the value is undefined. This helps prevent errors if the property isn't there. Modern JavaScript also lets you use destructuring with dynamic property names. You can write const property name variable is equal to object, which creates a variable holding the property value. It's a neat way to extract data cleanly when property names are stored in variables. Be cautious when property names come from outside sources like user input or APIS. Always validate and sanitize these names to avoid security issues or unexpected behavior. In summary, bracket notation is your main tool for accessing object properties with variable names. By writing object variable, you tell JavaScript to evaluate the variable and use its value as the key. This makes your code adaptable and easy to work with data that changes at runtime. Mastering this technique is key for building flexible web applications and handling data structures effectively.